And I'll bring RJ up. So RJ joined us from Zillow in the fourth quarter of last year. He's come in to help us on the IR side, business development, strategy, finance, and he's going to talk to you about what's happening in the real estate marketplace right now. So thank you very much. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Thank you, Jeff. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here to discuss the current market conditions. I'm going to go through a few recent data points, and then I'll turn it back over to Jeff to conclude. We're looking at recent housing market conditions. There's a balance of positive and challenging factors going on. COVID-19 and the collective response has had a major impact on the housing market, which we've all seen and experienced. As we cleared through April, there appears to be a balance of factors that are indicating we are moving through the lowest points. So balance is key. What we're seeing now between the positive and challenging factors, with much hanging on a reopening of the economy, there's a lot of good indicators that we have a lot to look forward to, but we still have a ways to go. That next slide, please. First, let's take a look at some recent data in new listings. So to orient you to this slide, you're looking at the timeline. It's starting in late February, it concludes in late April, and we're looking at listings that were coming on the market each day, and it's comparing today's date versus last year. In late March, we started to see new listings coming under pressure with social distancing and government mandated closures of businesses. April experienced a massive decline in new listings versus last year, which I think a number of you saw in your markets. One good signal here is that as you look at the late April frame, we are starting to see that there's possibly a bottom. You can also see this on the next slide, looking at pending home sales. Same time frame, starting from late February through late April. Similar to new listings, pending home sales fell dramatically in late March and then throughout April. Again, as we started to exit April, the early signal is we're possibly starting to see a recovery. Slide, please. The National Association of Realtors fielded a study where they interviewed a lot of agents and how their clients are faring or what the clients are suggesting that they're doing during this time. And what's great as far as the signal here is that clients are sharing with you that it's about a pause, which is similar to what we're experiencing in the economy. Either looking to take a moment to take a step back from buying a new home or for listing a home. But the data is not indicating that there is a complete abandonment of the process. So you're looking at supply and demand, that is actually a good signal that when we get on the other side of this, we have much to look forward together. Looking again at new listings, and this is if you take a snapshot of time from the beginning of when a market enters the most restrictive types of response to the COVID-19 experience to when new listings start to recover. What we're typically seeing is about 30 days in is where the market starts to see its footing. This chart in particular shows some markets that are more relevant to EXP, Texas, in Florida, and North Carolina. Many of those key markets are starting to see a recovery. On the next slide, when you look at a national type of footprint, how long could this last and what could it look like? There's a lot of data from a number of entities, and the data that we've been looking at comes from Zillow. But the general consensus is that we're going to start to see a recovery here in the middle of 2020. It'll last well into 2021 and concluding in 2022. And it can follow a recovery that looks like, or a shape that looks like a check mark. There's other types of analysis out there that suggest it could be like a Nike swoosh. But as far as like the general trend lines, which is consistent with what we're experiencing, is that you start to see, you see an immediate pause or halt, and then things find their footing and they start to come back. That is, again, consistent with what we're experiencing at EXP, and I think for a number of you out there in your markets, you're starting to see this as well. Overall, looking at what that means for the market in 2020, recently Fannie Mae came out with their forecast or prediction for home sales throughout the country this year, that we'll see a 15% decline from fiscal 2019. So what's interesting for us is that EXP had just above a 1% share of transactions in fiscal 19. We have an opportunity to continue to grow our market share in this year and beyond. Even with this type of pressure in the market, it represents a healthy amount of activity that we can participate in and thrive on the other side. Looking at that type of demand, the National Association of Home Builders recently, they regularly come out with their survey on buyer demand. And what you are probably experiencing when you speak with clients is this is actually reflected in this data, which is still want to purchase a home over the next year. Over time, this demand has come down when you look at percentages, but to give some context, right now in the first quarter, 10% of adults would like to purchase a home in the coming 12 months. Just for perspective, 10% of adults is 25 million active home shoppers in the United States. So this is a great indicator that there's a healthy market in buying demand still out there, with a pause on inventory, starting to see some relief. And when you look at the overall expectations for every home that's going to be hopefully purchased in fiscal 20, there's nearly 6 buyers that are interested in purchasing that home. Looking at a lot of data here now on the underlying data that supports mortgages in the United States. This is from Black Knight. I'd like to point out to everybody that there are some big differences between what we experienced in 2007 as we entered what is known as the Great Financial Crisis, and today what we're experiencing, which is a completely unprecedented circumstance. The housing market, the fundamentals that are underlying it, are coming from a position of strength. It's very, very different, and you can look at a couple of key factors that I'd like to point out to you when you see what percentages of equity look like for current homeowners, number of subprime loans that are active, and when you look at the number of ARM mortgages that are active in the United States. This is a stark difference today versus what we were seeing back at that time. So I'd like this for all of you to have a sense of confidence that what underpins the housing market is currently a lot stronger than what we were experiencing back at the time that we all went through the great challenge that came with the Great Financial Crisis. So what we're looking at as we transition here over the course of this year and into 2021, we do have a housing market with strong underpinnings as far as fundamentals. Indications are that with the balance of supply and demand taking a pause, that both listings and buyers will come back with strength as the economy opens up across the country. The shape of how this could look is more like a check mark or a swoosh, and data continues to indicate this. And what's been great is where EXP is positioned, we're experiencing consistent experiences with this data, and that we can weather the storm.